I'll be your pharaoh soon. Bring forth thy heaven new. Things will be.
Hi, I'm PJ Marks, owner of the Wakeboard Camp. I opened the camp in 1996 with the sole purpose of creating the best place in the world to teach people how to wakeboard better. Since then, we've spent thousands of hours teaching students of all ages and abilities. Our basic philosophy has always been that no matter what trick you're doing, the same basic skills and physics apply. As a result of this philosophy, we've broken tricks down into their most basic parts and developed exercises to simplify the learning process. At first, many of these exercises seem like they would be for beginners only, but if you take the time and examine them, you realize that they can and should be used by every rider regardless of age and ability. This series will teach you just about everything you could ever want to know about the sport of wakeboarding, from choosing your equipment, to driving the boat, to basic skills, all the way through executing the most advanced tricks. For years, people have been asking us to put all this stuff down on tape. Well, we finally feel like we know enough about the sport to write the book on wakeboarding instruction. So here it is, the book, Instructional DVD Series.
Hi, I'm Mike Mclin. I'm the visual effects director for the book Instructional Series. I handle pretty much all the technical stuff. I'm here to show you some of the different abbreviations that we're going to be using in this DVD and throughout the book Instructional Series. As you can see here, this is a list of some of the more common abbreviations that we'll be using. You have HS for heel side, TS toe side, FS for front side, BS for back side, SW for switch stance, and OA for off axis. Finally, you'll notice one of 3 different edging position icons will be in the bottom left corner of each trick's chapter intro. Use these as position starting points during the approach of the trick to help you better your pop at the wake.
Hi, I'm Kyle Schmidt, head coach here at the Wakeboard Camp and instructional editor for Wakeboarding Magazine. In this DVD, we're going to work on building a foundation. We're going to take you through drills to help you improve your skills out on the water and get ready for tricks down the road. Along with these drills, we're going to break down heel side and toe side wake jumps, as well as the 4 on-axis 180s. We're also going to introduce you to the graduation ladder, which is a series of steps to help you break down tricks and learn quickly. As you work on one trick and climb the graduation ladder, don't be afraid to take steps back to refine your basics. If you skip steps, it may take longer to learn the trick and you may develop bad habits. To finish up this DVD, we're going to take you through grabs and teach you how to add a little style to your riding. So let's get started with building a foundation. In the Getting Started DVD of this series, we touched on edging to get you started moving across the back of the boat. In this section, we'll get more in depth and go over some drills or protocol to help you understand better how to edge back and forth across the wakes. Knowing this will give you a better feel for your board and help you realize when your fins are in and tracking or out and sliding.
Alright, we're going to start off the DVD with heel side edging protocol. This is an edging protocol or a drill that I've come up with after sitting in the boat for so many hours and years coaching people. It's basically to give you a better overall feel for your heel side edge and actually to teach you how to drive your edge correctly into the water. The first step is getting into the front side slide position and then leaning over each tip or tail to move back and forth across the back of the boat. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can lean and you can actually turn the board a little bit. Whichever tip is closer to the boat, that's the direction you're going to move. When you can control this, you're ready for step 2. Step 2, you're going to start on one side of the wake, you're going to edge towards your toes, and then slide into the front side slide position. Once you're in the front side slide position, you're going to lean towards the direction that you would normally edge heel side. What this does is it teaches you how to lean over the front third of the board and drive that edge into the water. It's basically edging. This is true edging. Having your fins out and using your edge to move them back and forth across the back of the boat is true edging to me. Fins are a crutch. It's like a train on train tracks, you know, like a train's on the tracks. The train can't get off the tracks because the wheels are locked in. And that's basically how fins are. They help you, they don't really teach you how to edge correctly. This drill will actually teach you how to edge correctly and really give you a powerful edge. Step 3, you're gonna edge outside the wakes, set up away from the wake, and then edge towards the wake, and then turn back away from the wakes to get into the front side slide position. When you're in the front side slide position, lean out towards the flats and drive that edge into the water by leaning back against the rope with your shoulders. You're going to lean a little over the nose of the board to move outward, and this teaches you how to drive that edge in the water. At the same time that you're leaning over that edge, you're going to kind of sit down a little bit and use your shoulders to create leverage against the rope. It's going to feel like you're plowing water or pushing water, which you are, and you'll notice that your fins will be sliding out of the water, or you'll notice that your fins will be, you know, broken loose, and you'll be sliding through the water, but moving out at the same time. With step 4, you're basically going to check your edge and see if it feels more powerful. So what you do is you just stand next to the wake and then edge outward. You should see a noticeable difference in before and after. Before you started this drill, you probably didn't have a good feel for, you know, how the board's tracking through the water. Now you should really be able to tell when the board's tracking and have a powerful edge. Eventually you'll build such great power to do tricks like this S-bend, and you'll see right here as Jerry's edging into the wake for an S-bend, the spray coming off his board is actually spraying higher than his height. You need to be able to edge aggressively on tricks like this so you can project yourself way out into the flats. Next are basically the same 4 steps, but you're going to do it toe side instead of heel side. For this drill, we're going to use the backside slide, and you're going to start on one side of the wake and edge towards the other, so you can switch directions and break your fins loose to get in the slide. Once you're in the sliding position, you're going to do the same thing as the heel side edging protocol. You're going to lean from side to side and try to move back and forth across the back of the boat. This position's a little more awkward. You have to push the handle really far behind your back and try this at slow speeds. At slow speeds, you don't really have to lean that much over your toes since the water's so soft. So try to stay straighter over your board with just a little lean over your toes. For step 2, you're going to start the same way. You'll start on one side of the wake, edge towards the other, break your fins loose, and get into the backside slide, but this time do it with 2 hands. Once you're in the backside slide, try to move in the direction of your normal toe side edge. Getting into the backside slide with 2 hands is a lot harder than getting into the slide with 1 hand. So you have to really twist your lower body underneath you and push your back foot around towards the boat. Step 3, you're going to edge outside of the wakes towards the side of the boat that you would normally edge out toe side. Start about halfway out, edge towards the wake, then turn away and switch directions so you can blow your fins out and get into the backside slide position. Once you're into the backside slide position, lean down the rope very hard and over the nose of the board to move outward away from the wakes. You'll be edging the board and driving that front third of the board into the water and really edging the board without your fins tracking. Do this a couple times to get the feel for it and really engrave it in your muscle memory. As you can see here, Ben is really twisting his lower body and his fins are broken loose, but his upper body is leaning down the rope. He has a little bit of lean over his nose so he can move outward. If you've never taken the fins off your board, you should probably try that at least once when you're out on the water. It really gives you a different feel and really teaches you how to edge the board across the water. The board's going to feel really slippery, kind of like a snowboard would feel, when you're sliding down the mountain. But it really teaches you better edge control out on the water. For step 4, you're just going to test your new toe-side edge out to see if you feel a difference between before and after. When you're edging out, make sure that you edge with your belly pointed up towards the sky and don't break at the waist so you're leaning forward. You should get to the point where your fins are almost breaking loose. This is on the verge of sliding and you should be creating a very hard edge. You're going to eventually use this to do really big toe-side tricks taken out into the flats. As you can see, for these tricks you really have to lean down the rope and create a lot of leverage to create a lot of speed to project yourself out into the flats. These edging protocols play tricks with your mind. If you've ever driven down the highway for a long period of time at high speeds and then gotten off the highway onto a slower street, you tend to want to drive fast, and it seems like everything is, going too slow if you drive too slow. And that's kind of what these edging protocols do to you. You edge really hard for a while, and then you naturally just edge harder because it feels more comfortable.
Sliding your board on the lip of the wake helps to improve your overall body position and control on the water. The names of all the slides directly cross over from skateboarding, so take the time to dial in each of the slides and improve your overall control.
First of the 4 slides that we're going to talk about is the backside board slide. For this slide, you want to make sure that you have really good control of your front side slide. This kind of goes back to the heel side edging protocol. You should be able to move back and forth sliding side slide in the water. You're going to set up for this trick with your back facing the lip of the wake, and that's what makes this slide a backside board slide. Start in the trough of the wake, slowly edge up to the top of the wake, and then push the handle so you spin front side to get into the sliding position. The next slide is the front side board slide. This is directly related to the backside slide that we talked about earlier for the toe side edging protocol. You want to do the same thing. You want to gain control of this slide by moving back and forth across the back of the boat in the sliding position. Set up for this trick in the trough of the wake. Front side, this means that your chest is facing the lip of the wake. Slowly edge up to the top of the wake, and you can even give a little hop to get into the sliding position by moving the handle. You don't want to take an approach on these slides, because if you're moving too fast towards the wake, you'll overshoot the wake and you'll miss the slide at the lip of the wake. The next slide is the front side lip slide. The word lip slide means that the tail of your board is going to travel over the lip of the wake, and that's what distinguishes a lip slide from a board slide. Here we have a front side board slide, and you can see the arrow signifies that your tail is going to go over the lip of the wake to get into the lip slide position. To get out of the slide, you can move the handle again to turn your body back to normal, or you can give a little ollie. So set up in the trough, slowly edge up the wake, ollie into the slide, or just push the handle and push the fins out to slide the board into the lip slide position. The next slide is the backside lip slide. This is the harder of the 4 slides because you have to twist a little further to get into the sliding position. As you can see, the arrow points that the tail of the board is going to go over the lip of the wake, and this lets you know that the slide is a lip slide. It's a backside lip slide because your back is facing the lip of the wake. In this shot, we show the difference between a board slide and a lip slide, and you can see on the front side lip slide, the tail of the board goes over the lip of the wake, where on the board slide, the nose of the board goes over the lip of the wake. Same thing for the front side lip slide and the front side board slide. The tail of the board is the distinguishing factor in the name of the trick. As you get comfortable with all these wake slides, you can start adding your own variations. Here we have a switch 270 to front board slide.
Now that you understand body position, board control, and you have improved your edge control, it's time to move on to jumping the wakes. With this graduation ladder, we can take you through jumping the wakes and getting wake to wake without taking the hard falls. If you skip the graduation ladder, it's very easy to develop bad habits and take some hard falls. So let's move on to that right now.
So now that you have your heel side edge built up and you can edge aggressively, you're going to want to try to start jumping the wakes. Here we have an illustration of a wake to wake jump and just edging through the wake, and this is the first step that you need to take on your path to actually clearing the wake. What you want to do is you want to take a big approach, edge towards the wake and edge through the wakes, absorbing the wakes with your knees. What this does is it teaches you how to keep your direction and form good habits. Basically, you don't want to stop and decelerate right before the wake. So it's really important to keep your direction across the back of the boat, and this is what helps you clear the wake. As you can see here, I'm edging in and actually letting my knees just jump up to my chest, and I'm maintaining my upper body position and continuing my edge across the back of the boat out to the other side. You're going to want to try this a couple times and try to make your edge faster every time that you edge through the wakes. The next step is to learn how to ollie. And you're going to do this at first right in the middle of the wakes by actually bouncing on your back foot. What you want to do is you want to actually bounce like a bunny rabbit at first by standing kind of stiff on your back foot and just pushing the tail down into the water. Actually pushing the tail down into the water is what projects you up into the air. If you push the tail down, the water will push you back up if you have a nice tall position. So stand kind of stiff and then push the tail down into the water. It's easier to balance if you have one hand on the handle, so turn in line with the rope and then try doing a single ollie after you've bounced for a while. After you do it inside the wakes, you're going to want to take this outside the wake. Ollieing is easier if you have speed. Like the faster you go through the water, the harder the water becomes. So when you ollie, you'll get more pop off the water. So start at the wake, edge out aggressively, come off edge and go flat, and then pop the ollie pretty hard with your back foot. After you do this with one hand, learn how to ollie with two hands to gain control and prepare yourself for wake jumps. So after you get your ollies down, you're going to want to move on to the next step, which is inside out jumps. Here we have an illustration of an inside out jump compared to an ollie. Basically, for an inside out jump, you're going to start in the middle of the wakes and you're going to combine an ollie with a push off the inside lip of the wake. This step of the graduation ladder really prepares riders for their landing edge for wake to wake jumps. What you want to do is you want to start in the middle on one side and then edge heel side towards the lip of the wake and give a little bit of an ollie with your back foot, as well as more of a push with both legs. You want to start on a slower edge, push really hard off the top of the lip, and then try to land on a harder edge than the edge that you took off on. The next step is the one wake jump, and what this does is it gets you used to pushing off the energy of the wake. For this jump, you're going to want to take a short approach, and you're going to want to just drift into the wake with your knees bent. As you get to the bottom of the wake, start to stand tall so you can pop off the top of the wake. It's important to keep your edge all the way through the wake so you have water pushing on the board. If you're flat, then you'll have nothing pushing on the board, and that takes away a little bit of your pop. When you land, continue your edge out to the other side of the wakes. Now you should be ready for an actual wake-to-wake jump. For a wake-to-wake jump, you're actually just going to take a bigger approach. It's the same technique, same rhythm as a one-wake jump, but you're going to take a bigger approach so it just allows you more time to gain more speed. Edge aggressively out towards the flats, come off edge, bend your knees, and then begin a progressive edge into the wake. At the whitewash, you want to lean hard against the rope and then stand tall through the wake to pop. It's important to pop with your hips forward. You don't want to push your hips out behind you because then you'll lose control. One of the biggest keys to jumping the wake is the ready position. The ready position is having your knees bent and looking at the wake, and you do this after you edge out away from the wakes and before you start your edge in towards the wakes. As you can see here, Kurt starts a slow edge in towards the wakes in the seated position so he can use his legs at the wake. At about the whitewash, he starts to lean back against the rope to create his edge and then stands tall through the top of the wake with his hips forward, and then when he lands, he continues his edge out to the other side. As soon as you learn your wake-to-wake jumps, you might as well go ahead and learn them switch as soon as possible, because eventually you're going to learn half cab 180s, and you need to be able to have a strong switch jump to do this trick. Whenever you get your wake-to-wake jumps consistent, you're going to want to start grabbing the board. When you grab the board, it might help to sit down a little bit more so you can use a little bit more legs at the wake. And what you want to do is you want to bring your knees up to your chest. You don't want to bend forward or reach down to grab the board. You want to bring the board up to you and then just reach down with your hand, not your entire upper body. One of the mistakes that people make when doing grabs is they think about the grab too much instead of a normal wake jump. Try to think about doing a nice jump, and then once you get in the air, if the jump is good, reach down and grab the board.
The toeside wake jump is seemingly harder than the heelside wake jump at first. Make sure you learn all your toeside edging drills before attempting your first jump. Once you're ready to get going, we're going to show you all the baby steps to climb the seemingly big mountain known as toeside wake jumps.
For toeside jumps, you're going to want to take the same steps of the graduation ladder. The first step, again, is to edge through the wakes and absorb the wake as you edge through, so you build up a constant motion or a constant edge across the back of the boat. Take a big approach, start a slow turn, and then edge through the wakes, letting your knees jump up to your chest so you absorb both wakes, and then continue your edge out the other side. A lot of people are intimidated by toeside jumps because they're actually facing the water, and it's a twisted position. But that's one thing they don't think about, it's twisted. So what you have to do is you have to kind of resist the untwist as you're going through the wake. When something's twisted up and it's held, it naturally wants to untwist. When you let go of it, it will untwist. And that's kind of what your body wants to do as it leaves the water through the wake. So you have to resist that, and you do that with a rope by pushing the rope in the opposite direction that your body wants to untwist. Now we move on to step 2, and that's the ollie. For this, you want to start in the middle of the wakes again with one hand, and then move on to 2 hands, and then eventually take it out towards the flats with 2 hands to get used to pushing off the water in the toeside edging position. When you're in the middle of the wakes, it's going to feel exactly the same for both heel side and toe side because you're directly behind the boat. When you actually move outside of the wakes, it's going to feel totally different, and you'll feel the awkward twisted position. Next, you'll move on to inside out jumps, and for this you're going to again combine the ollie with more of a 2-legged push off the wake. But really importantly, make sure you edge hard on the landing, harder than the edge that you took off on. One of the biggest mistakes people make is jumping a wake and then stopping when they land. And what this does is it's actually switching direction and it forces the fins out of the water, and it forces you to do a turn, which makes you slide, and that's what makes you get out of control and you actually take a fall. For the one wake jump, again, you're going to want to take a short approach, and you're just going to drift into the wake and stand tall. For toeside jumps, I like to have people stand a little taller with their position. If you take the knee bend out of the jump, then people will make less mistakes. When people bend their knees, they tend to bend over, and when they bend over, they're in a weird position. If they hit a wake, they'll actually fall forward, or when they stand up, they're actually throwing their shoulders back. So if you make them stand tall and just use their position and let the wake do all the work, you usually have more success at wake jumps. So edge out, stand really tall, and just take that tall position and lean it against the rope, and then ride through the wake and let the wake do all the work. You just worry about your edge. Next, you're going to move on to the two wake jump. For this, again, you're just going to take a bigger approach, and as you enter the trough, you're going to give a hard lean down your back arm to increase your edge and increase the leverage on the line to give you that pop to help you clear the wake. Most importantly, continue your edge out the other side. Anticipating your landing edge is what really helps you land your jumps. If you don't think about anything in the air, then a lot of times you'll try to stop on your landing, and that's what makes you slide out. So really think about edging again and keeping your direction out away from the wakes. Again, remember to try to think about not untwisting when your board leaves the wake. Your body's going to want to untwist towards the boat, so you need to resist that twist by twisting in the opposite direction to keep your position. When you go for a grab, remember, think about a nice good wake jump, and you might want to add a little bit of knee bend for this trick so you can push harder off the top of the wake. The easiest first grab for a toeside jump is probably an indie grab. And what this does is it allows you to keep your twisted position because your backhand will come off the handle.
Over my years of coaching and sitting in the boat for countless hours, I've come up with drills to help a rider progress more quickly, but learn tricks at the same time. In this section, we'll go over the 2 and the 4 minute board control drills and then finish up with re-entries. The 2 and the 4 minute drills take you past the first step of the graduation ladder and increase your switch riding so you're prepared for 180s. Re-entries increase your overall pop of wake jumps and ollies and prepare you for trip flip edging and inverts down the road. So get used to doing these drills as a good warm-up for each set, and you'll see your riding improve very quickly.
The 2 and the 4 minute drills are board control drills. They're designed to get a rider to practice all 4 positions, all 4 carves, every edge on their wakeboard, as well as all 4 180s. You'll even experience every single handle pass you can possibly do on a wakeboard. These drills really increase a rider's skills out on the water and give them a better overall feel for their board. Being able to slide the board through the water and pass the handle gives you ultimate control over having your fins in and tracking or out and sliding. But being able to do this while you're carving gives you really good control over your board. The first thing that we need to talk about are loose rope and leverage turns. A loose rope turn is any carve made back towards the wake. And the reason we call it a loose rope turn is because if you carve too fast, you get slack in the rope. Any turn made away from the wake is called a leverage turn. And the reason we call it a leverage turn is because you have to lean against the rope and create leverage on the rope to actually move out away from the wakes. The 2-minute drill is basically 3 carves and a 180 to move on to the next position. When you make your loose rope turns or your carves back towards the wake, I want you to use one hand, so you're standing more like a surfer. When you're edging out away from the wakes, I want 2 hands on the handle so you have the strength to leverage against the rope. So 1 hand on the way in, 2 on the way out. And you're going to do this for every single position. After your 3rd carve, you're going to edge away and break your fins loose close to the wake. And this is called a leverage turn, surface, frontside 180. You're going to continue on with your carving, 1 hand on the way in, 2 hands on the way out, and do 3 more carves before your next 180. This next 180 is going to be during a loose rope turn, and it's harder than the one during the leverage turn. So edge faster back towards the wake and break your fins loose to do the frontside 180 with 2 hands. Then continue across the wakes to the other side for your next 180. So again, we're going to start on this side with 3 carves, 2 hands on the way out, 1 hand on the way in. After your 3rd carve, you're going to edge aggressively back out and do your first frontside 180 with 2 hands. Continue on to do 3 more carves, 1 hand on the way in, 2 hands on the way out. The main reason that I have you do 1 hand on the way in is because you stand more like a surfer and it allows you to get into a better surfing position when the rope is loose. After your 3rd carve, do your next 180 and then continue across the wakes for the rest of the 2-minute drill. On this side, you're going to edge toe side first, and your first 180 is going to be during a loose rope turn. So continue with 3 carves, try to make big S's outside of the trough, and after your 3rd carve, you're going to do a surface 180 with 2 hands. If you'll notice, you're practicing all 4 surface 180s in every single position on a wakeboard. That's what makes this drill so effective. You can do the 2-minute drill with frontside 180s and backside 180s, and we'll get to that in a second. So continue on with your carving and then finish up with your last frontside 180. As you get better at this drill, you'll notice a big difference in your switch riding because you're practicing every position on the board. You should try to edge more aggressively every time you do this drill, and it only takes a couple minutes, and it's a great warm-up. Next, we're going to do all the backside 180s incorporated into the 2-minute drill. So you're going to start with your 3 carves, but this time, you're going to do the 180s during your toe side carves instead of your heel side carves like before. After you make your 3rd carve, you're going to cut towards the wake on your heels, but then edge back out on your toes, and then push your fins out and pass the handle behind your back for your first backside 180. Continue your carves again, 2 hands on the way out, 1 on the way in, and then get ready for your next 180. This one's going to be during a loose rope turn, and this is difficult because you have to balance because the rope's going to be loose for a split second. So basically you're going to go into a backside slide or a power slide and then just continue passing the handle behind your back to complete the backside 180. That was a loose rope turn, surface 180. After the first 2 180s, cut across the wakes and continue your carves out on the other side. 2 hands on the way out, 1 on the way in. And then get ready for your next loose rope turn, surface backside 180. You may want to try these drills at slow boat speeds at first because it can hurt catching your heel side edge when you do the backside 180s. So slow the boat down at first and then eventually work your way up to a normal boat speed. Switching directions is what helps you break your fins loose. So edge out and then turn back, switch directions like if you were switching directions in a car fast, the back tires would break loose. And this is what helps you accomplish the backside 180s. So after the 4 180s, you're basically done with the 2-minute drill. The cool thing about the 2-minute drill with backside 180s is you're actually practicing all 4 of the backside 180s and all 4 handle passes. So it's basically taking you through the first step of the graduation ladder. Even better yet, you're practicing those 180s while you're moving across the back of the boat, back and forth. Being able to do these surface 180s while you're moving is a lot harder than actually doing the 180s while you're standing still in the middle of the wakes. So it really increases your board control skills and gives you a better feel on the water. So remember, start with 3 carves and then a 180, and then 3 more carves and then a 180 again, and then move across the wakes for your next sequence on the other side. In total, you'll take about 4 minutes to do both drills, the 2-minute drill with frontside 180s, and the 2-minute drill with backside 180s. And this is called the 4-minute drill. The complete 4-minute drill is just the ultimate bore control drill, and you'll really see your riding improve. I can't stress how important these skills are to actually jumping the wake and learning 180s down the road. As far as all the riding positions are concerned, you'll notice that you get into the cuff position a lot when you're doing the backside slides. So everything is incorporated into these drills. Like I said, the 4-minute drill is a combination of both 2-minute drills, frontside and backside 180s. It's best to start it regular, and you're going to edge out on your heel side edge away from the boat. You're going to make 3 cars and then do your frontside 180. When you're carving, make sure you edge out smoothly and then try to edge back towards the wake aggressively. Being able to do this turn back towards the wake is what really improves your bore control skills. The edge out is the easy one. Edging out is like being a train on train tracks. You know where you're going to go. It doesn't take much skill to edge out. You just lean against the rope and you move out away from the wakes. Carving in for a split second when the rope is loose, you have to actually use your balance to carve and move back towards the wake. So it takes a little more skill. So this is the turn that you really want to practice. When you get out onto the water to start a new set, it doesn't really take that much time to actually go through this drill and improve your bore control skills. It's way better to do this drill as a warm-up than actually jump the wakes. You know, you might take a fall if you jump the wakes, and it's just not worth taking a fall. This is a great warm-up, and when you try your first wake jump after this warm-up, you'll have a lot more success and you won't take those hard falls. I usually try to get people to do some ollies after this drill, and what this does is it basically gets them ready for any kind of pop into any kind of position that they're going to get into during their set. This little illustration basically is put together so you can pause or memorize the positions and the carves and when you're actually supposed to do the 180s. One thing that I want to let you know is you always want to do the frontside 180s while you're carving on your heels. So you're going to edge on your toes and then carve on your heels to do the surface 180. So you're basically going to do a carve, then a 180. You don't want to do the opposite or you'll catch an edge. For the backside 180s, you're actually going to carve on your toes to do the backside 180s. You're going to start with an initial heel side edge, carve on your toes to break the fins loose. Re-entries actually increase a rider's overall pop off their back foot. The frontside re-entry is when you're facing the wake, just like if you're getting ready to do a frontside lip slide or frontside board slide. What you want to do is you want to sit in the trough, drift up to the top of the wake, and then ollie off the lip of the wake. What this does is it teaches a rider to push off the part of the wake with the most energy with their back leg. The tail of the board is the last thing to go through the wake on jumps, and the back leg is the last thing to push off the wake. So what this does is it really increases the rider's overall pop. You don't want to take a big approach on this drill, because then you'll have too much momentum going into the middle of the wakes and it'll be hard to switch directions. When you do re-entries, you want to make sure you drift up to the top, switch directions, and then try to ollie back down to the bottom. Here we have a backside re-entry. This is called a backside re-entry because your back is facing the wake, like a backside board slide or a backside lip slide. So drift up to the wake very slowly, switch directions off the top, and then try to ollie back out into the flats. The backside re-entry is a lot harder than the frontside re-entry because you're twisted and you're trying to push out over your toes. So it may take some getting used to.
Now that you're comfortable jumping the wake and riding in the switch position, it's time to start learning some 180s. The heel side frontside 180 is a great place to start. One of the most common problems when people are first attempting this 180 is that they don't rotate the board the full 180. On landing, make sure the nose of your board is heading in the direction that you're going and not pointing towards the back of the boat.
For the heel side frontside 180, you're going to use the steps of the graduation ladder to get to the wake-to-wake version of the trick. You're going to start with step 1, and that's the surface heel side frontside 180, and you're going to do this right in the middle of the wakes at first. To do this 180, you're going to bend down, bend at the knees, and sit your butt down towards the water to give yourself the leverage to actually slide the 180. To spin the 180, move the handle in the opposite direction that you want to spin. So bend down first, move the handle in the opposite direction you want to spin, and then push your fins out and slide to switch. You're going to go back and forth from regular to switch, and then back to regular again. Bending down or getting into the seated position gives you the leverage to actually push the fins out. You don't want to slide 180s on the surface in a tall position. After you're able to do the 180 sitting still in the middle of the wake, you're going to want to try to start doing it moving across the back of the boat a little bit, but still in the middle of the wakes. Slow the boat down for this, so if you take falls, it won't hurt. The water will be nice and soft. After you accomplish the surface 180 inside the wakes, move outside the wakes and try it in the flats. Edge out away from the wakes, flatten off your board, move the handle and blow your fins out. Make sure you lean back on your heel side edge so you don't catch your toe edge. After you slide the 180, make sure you lean over your toe side edge and continue your edge out. This will form good habits for the wake-to-wake version of the trick. The next step is actually to move on to the ollie. Ollie is the second step in the graduation ladder, and you're going to want to do this in the middle of the wakes first. Right behind the boat, ollie up, move the handle, and turn between regular and switch stance. It helps to actually give your shoulders a little pre-turn, or cock your shoulders so you can actually throw your shoulders into the trick as well as move the handle to leverage yourself around to spin the trick. Give a good push off your back foot to pop the board out of the water, then move the handle and turn your body to complete the 180. After you do the ollie in the middle of the wake, work your way outside, edge out towards the flats, and make sure you flatten off your board. If you don't flatten off your board, this will make this trick very difficult and the rope will pull you over. The next step in the graduation ladder is the inside out jump. And what this does is it prepares you for your landing edge, as I discussed earlier in the DVD. So in the middle of the wakes, start on one side, edge towards the other, ollie, push off the top of the wakes, and then move the handle to turn the trick. When you land, make sure that you anticipate your landing edge and you edge out towards the flats. You don't want to stop when you land because this will make you actually slide out on the trick and take a fall. The next step is the one wake jump. Remember, this is to get you used to the energy of the wake. So take a short approach, bend your knees before you start your edge in so you're ready to pop. And make sure you look at the bottom of the wake because that's when you have to start standing tall. Your goal is to make sure you're tall through the top, so you actually have to start standing tall at the bottom of the wake. The key to doing the 180 off the wake is waiting. You want to make sure you think about a good heelside jump, then when you get into the air, if the jump is good, move the handle and turn the 180 on the way down. So jump on the way up, spin on the way down. Every time that you take a step up in the graduation ladder, you're going to want to spin later because you're going to have more air and more time in the air. So after you accomplish the one wake version of the heelside frontside 180, you're going to want to take it wake to wake. So for this step of the graduation ladder, all you're going to want to do is take a bigger approach so you have more time to gain more speed, so you'll carry more distance. Make sure you keep the same rhythm in the same position through the wake. Take the trick up and then spin on the way down. Really concentrate on thinking about a nice heelside jump, not the 180. If the jump is good in the air, make sure you spin on the way down. While in the air, make sure you anticipate your landing edge over your switch toe side and continue your edge out away from the wakes. The last and final step of the graduation ladder is to learn how to do the trick and take it out into the flats. For this, you're going to take a really big approach and you're going to add a nice strong edge so you have the speed to carry enough distance to carry the trick out into the flats. So after you're able to take the trick wake to wake, you're going to want to learn how to grab the trick. One of the first and easiest grabs for a heelside frontside 180 is the slog grab. Basically, this is your front hand, and you're going to take the trick up, bring your knees up to your chest, and grab the board. Here's another variation. This is actually a stalefish grab. This grab is a little more difficult because you're crossed up in the air and you have to actually move the handle with the opposite hand, and it's kind of an awkward position at first, but it's a really cool version of the trick. As you can see here, the non-grab version, your legs are extended a bit more in the air. When you're grabbing the board, you bring your knees more up to your chest.
The heelside backside 180 is a very difficult trick to learn at first, but can be very rewarding. This trick can either be done with a handle pass or landing blind. You should learn both these methods because in the future, the more advanced tricks will incorporate both of these landings.
So now we move on to the heelside backside 180. This is the same heelside edge, but the opposite rotation. You're going to spin backside, and this spin incorporates a handle pass. So start with the first step of the graduation ladder, the surface 180, right behind the boat in the middle. And you're actually going to want to use the cuff position to actually slide this 180 in the middle. So get in the cuff position, then push your fins out, and then get into the cuff slide. But then right away finish the 180 and come out of it switch. If you want, you can go right back into the switch cuff position and do a switch backside 180 as well. After you learn how to do this trick standing still, begin your movement across the back of the boat. This will mimic the movement and the feeling of moving across the back of the boat when you're doing a wake-to-wake heelside backside 180. As you start to get comfortable with that movement, take the trick outside into the flats and try to do the trick with a little more speed to give you a little bit more confidence to do the wake-to-wake heelside backside 180. As you edge out, switch your directions by carving back on your heels, and this will help you break your fins loose to get into the backside slide. Continue to pass the handle behind your back, finish the 180, but then edge out on your toe side to keep the same direction. There are actually 3 variations of the heelside backside 180. The first one is with a handle pass. Basically, you're going to pass the handle early and have the handle in the opposite hand before you actually finish the trick. The second step is to finish the trick in the cuff position. This is the second of the 3 variations, and what this does is it gets you used to actually looking away from the boat and prepares you for the blind variation of the heelside backside 180. So what you want to do is you want to edge out heelside, slide the board just like you did before, but this time don't finish the handle pass. Also, you don't want to let your head come around towards the boat, because what this does is it forces you to over-rotate. If your head turns, your shoulders turn, then your hips turn, and that forces the board to turn enough to make the fin slide out, and that'll make you fall. The next step is to actually do the blind heelside backside landing. For this trick, you're going to edge out, you're going to come off edge and slide the board. You're going to spin the 180, but you're going to finish the 180 with one hand behind your back in the blind position. This position is the hardest of the 3, but it gives you really good control. So if you make a mistake, you have kind of a way out. If you only know one variation, then you don't have anything to fall back on. If you learn this way, then you have 2 more ways to land the 180, and you have 2 more fallbacks or scapegoats. From here, you're going to want to incorporate the ollie to the heelside backside 180. And again, you can do this with the 3 different handle passes. We're going to start with the handle pass variation since it's the easiest of the 3. And you're going to want to try this in the middle of the wake. So right behind the boat, give a nice big ollie and pass the handle behind your back. Remember, when you land, try to keep your head facing away from the boat so you don't over-rotate. When you're comfortable, take the trick outside and do the ollie backside 180 with the handle pass first on the outside of the wakes. What really helps people land this trick is doing a little cutback towards the boat. What this does is it gives you enough slack to make the handle pass. If you keep edging out, the rope will be too tight and it's hard to get the handle and actually finish the trick. So the next step is to do the ollie with the cuff landing. Remember, all 3 positions are good to learn, because then you'll have ultimate control over your handle passes. When you land the blind version of the trick, you don't really have to pass the handle. You can always tick-tock back or slide the board back around. Tick-tocking is when you land half-wrapped and then actually slide the board back to your normal riding position. The ollie heelside backside 180 is a good transition trick. After you land a wake-to-wake trick, you can edge out, do an ollie backside 180, and use it to connect tricks. So your next trick would be a switch stance trick, wake-to-wake. For a lower level trick, a lot of people find this trick to be pretty impressive, and I think it's because of the blind landing. When you're riding half-wrapped or blind, it just looks like an impossible position, but it's not really that hard, it just takes some practice. So after you land all the ollie heelside backside variations, you're going to want to start working your way towards the wake and do the inside out version of the heelside backside 180. Remember, every time you take a step up on the graduation ladder, you're going to want to wait and spin the trick later so you don't over rotate. Even if you're passing the handle early, you still want to keep your head facing back away from the boat. What this does is it gets you prepared for the cuff position, and it stops you from over-rotating and sliding out on your heels. I can't stress how important it is to really edge on your landing. This really locks you into position, so make sure you continue your edge out towards the flats. When you're doing inside-out tricks, remember to combine an ollie with a two-legged push to get the pop off the wake. Your edge on the inside should be slower than the edge on the outside. This is to prepare you for your wake-to-wake landing. So now you're ready for the one wake, heel side, backside 180. A lot of riders tend to over-rotate this trick because they're not used to having the energy of the wake underneath them, and it usually boots them a lot higher. So make sure that you take your time, take the jump up, and spin the heel side, backside 180 in slow motion on the way down. You may also want to try to slow the boat speed down because it'll make the wakes wider and you'll have a lot more room to land in the middle of the wakes. If you do this at faster speeds, the wakes will be narrow and you'll land in a lot of turbulence, and it makes doing all three of the landing positions very difficult. As you can see here, Mike drifts very slowly on his turn, but then as he enters the trough, he gives a nice edge to help him get the pop and keep the line tight so he has control in the air. You also notice that on every single variation of this trick, the rider is continuing across the back of the boat and keeping his direction. This is very important. If you switch directions, you'll slide out and take a fall. When you're trying to land blind in the middle of the wakes, this might be a little more difficult because of all the turbulence in the middle, and a lot of people skip this step. Remember, when you're doing the wake-to-wake, heel-side, backside 180, only think about doing a wake jump on the way up and then spinning on the way down. You're going to really have to act like you're doing the trick in slow motion because you'll have a lot of time in the air. And if you do the spin the same speed as the one wake version, then you'll over-rotate and fall back on your heels. So make sure when you're jumping wake-to-wake and doing the backside 180 to really slow down and make your rotation late. One of the key things that helps people land blind and cuffed is while they're spinning backside and they're in the air, is to spot the wake line that's created by the boat. What this does is it keeps the rider's head looking backwards and puts them in the right position to land blind or cuffed. When you're doing the backside 180 and you get into the blind landing position, try to keep the back of your hand up against your body. Don't let the boat pull the rope and your hand away from your body.
As we take you through this section, it's going to look like we're showing you the same trick over and over again. But remember, we're showing you all the different steps of the graduation ladder. And if you skip these steps, it's going to be a lot harder to learn the trick. So you don't have to actually do all the steps. It's a good idea and it'll help make it happen a lot faster. But we really recommend that you take these steps and it'll give you good form and you'll really develop good habits. Whenever you're ready to grab the board, heel side, backside 180s can look really, really cool with grabs. So the most common is like an Indy heel side, backside 180. When you do this trick, make sure you take the 180 up and grab Indy before you start to turn. If you start to turn off the wake, it's going to cause problems and you'll probably slide out and even miss the handle. So make sure you take the trick up, grab Indy, and then yank really hard to pull yourself into the backside 180.
toeside frontside 180 could be the easiest 180 to do because all you're really doing is untwisting your toeside twisted body position. The reason that it's easy is you get to land over your heel side edge with your chest facing the boat. So let's move on to breaking this trick down.
All right, we're moving on to toeside 180s, and we're going to start with the toeside frontside 180. The cool thing about toeside frontside 180s is your hips are twisted when you're edging toeside. So basically all you're doing is untwisting your lower body. If you're turning your upper body, you're spinning too much and this can cause problems. So just make sure you take the toeside jump up and then untwist your hips. When you're doing it on the surface, you're going to have to move the handle again right to left in the opposite direction that you want to spin. Again, make sure you sit down before you get into the side slide, then move the handle. Whenever you're doing surface slides in the middle of the wake, try not to do this at fast speeds because there's a bunch of turbulence in the middle of the wake and it causes problems and you can take some really hard falls. Make sure you keep the boat speed slow. As you get the basic 180 down in the center, start to move back and forth across the middle of the wakes to get the feeling of moving across the back of the boat. I can't stress how important it is to keep your direction on these tricks. If you form good habits at the beginning, it makes learning the wake-to-wake 180 a lot easier. Out in the flats is where people tend to run into problems sliding 180s. Whenever you're ready to do the surface 180 out in the flats, it's a good idea to kind of switch directions as you're doing the 180. So basically you're going to do a tiny little carve to get you set up into the position. And I demonstrated a lot of this in the 2 and 4 minute drill earlier in the video. After the surface toeside frontside 180, you're going to take it to the middle for the ollie again. And for this, the toeside frontside and the heel side frontside 180s are exactly the same, and basically you're just working on getting out of the water and twisting your hips and using the handle to spin. So take the same steps right in the middle of the wake for both 180s. As you get outside the wakes, this trick's a little more difficult out beside the boat because you're twisted so much when you're out beside the boat. So edge out hard and then flatten off and do a little cut back towards the boat to loosen up the rope, because if the rope's pulling on you, it's going to make the trick very difficult. So edge out, flatten off, cut back about 2 feet towards the boat and straighten out, and then ollie up and move the handle to do the 180. A tight line on this trick will really pull you down onto your face. So make sure that you come off edge, get back on your heels a little bit, then ollie up and spin the 180. For the inside out step of this trick, a lot of people have problems getting enough pop off the lip of the wake from the inside because there's not much energy on the inside of the wake. But another way that you can look at it is it's kind of like rolling off a curb in skateboarding. You're falling downward, so all you need is a little pop to unwind your hips. So you don't really have to get that much air to do the trick to unwind your hips and do the 180. So edge aggressively, put a little bit of legs and a little bit of ollie into the pop off the lip of the wake, and then spin the 180 and make sure you edge hard on your landing to finish the trick. When you get to the one wake step of the graduation ladder, it's important to use a tall position and not use your legs so much, because using your legs will cause the 2 problems of falling forward and falling back because you're using your upper body to jump too much. So stand tall, drift in, and then just ride through the wake. The analogy that I use when I get riders to jump the wake, toeside, is would you make a car jump if you were driving a car and jumping a ramp? You wouldn't yank up on the front of the car to jump. You would just ride through the ramp and keep accelerating, and the ramp would do all the work. And that's basically what I want you to do here for 1 wake and 2 wake toeside frontside 180s. Again, the 2 wake toeside frontside 180 is just a bigger approach and a more aggressive edge, but the position and the spin are exactly the same. You want to spin a little bit later and a little bit slower on this trick since you have more time in the air. It helps a little bit to approach the wake a little heavy on your tail, and that way you'll get a cleaner pop and it'll make spinning frontside a lot easier. Not too much, because then you'll fall back over your heels or over the tail of the board on the landing. A lot of riders don't usually take their toe-side jumps out into the flats, but this is what really prepares you for those big toe-side tricks like scarecrows and elephants and even toe-side railies. So once you're used to jumping the wake and doing the 180 two wakes, edge really hard and learn how to really cast your 180s out into the flats, and this will prepare you for those advanced tricks down the road. As you can see here, Kurt still drifts in. He lets the boat do the first half of his turn, and then after he's turned and the tip of the board is pointed towards the wake, that's when he really gets on his edge. And this really makes his edge progressive. If you get impatient and you edge too soon, then you'll decelerate at the wake and it causes problems with your pop. A lot of times riders will fall out the back on the landing and slide out on their heels. When you're doing a switch toe-side frontside 180, the pop is a lot more difficult because it's a switch toe-side jump, but the landing is really easy. So if you can get any kind of pop when you're switch toe-side, this spin becomes really easy. When you're ready to do a toe-side frontside 180 with a grab, there's so many different variations of this trick. A lot of people use their backhand and they grab the board and land crossed up, but you can do so many different grab variations since all you're doing is really untwisting your hips. Again, in the air you can see the toe-side jump is a lot taller in mid-flight than the grab version of the trick because you have to bring your knees up to your chest to grab the board.
The toe-side backside 180 is the most difficult of all the 180s. Whether you're doing it handle pass or landing it blind, it just feels awkward. We're going to give you some tricks that make the toe-side backside 180 a little bit more comfortable.
Alright, now we're going to take you through the hardest of the 4 180s. This is the toe-side backside 180. And again, you can do this backside 180 with 3 different handle pass variations. Through the first steps of this 180, we're gonna just work on the handle pass version, and you're gonna start in the middle of the wake and do the same steps as before when you were doing the heel side backside 180. These 2 180s are exactly the same in the middle of the wake, and you're just gonna work on your form and your handle pass. Whenever you're sliding backwards, make sure you're low, because what this will do is it'll force you into the backside spinning position. So right here, you want to squat down as much as possible, past the handle and the small of your back, and lean back against the rope. After you get the handle pass down, start to add a little edge. What this will do is it'll add some line tension, so you might want to try to get the handle first before you actually start sliding the board as you're moving across the back of the boat. So start your edge, let go with your back hand, turn the handle down, reach for the handle, then slide the board out. If you slide the board first, a lot of times riders will catch their heel edge and take a fall. When you're done passing the handle and you finish the 180, edge out the other side of the wakes. Out in the flats, this is pretty difficult because of the twisted position, and you don't really have any way to, create momentum with your body to spin the trick. So as you can see here, Mike does a little cutback to help himself do a little pre-turn to get the momentum to actually spin the 180. The first 180 he did was the handle pass variation, and you just saw the cuffed variation. Now riding heel side in the cuff position is really difficult on this trick. Coming out of the trick and getting into the cuff position, because you really have to overspin the board and it's a really awkward position. But it's not impossible. If you take some time and actually learn how to edge in this position without doing a 180, you'll find that getting to the landing position is actually kind of easy. Next we have the blind variation of the surface toe side backside 180. And this is the most difficult landing in wakeboarding. But if you master it, you can really add some cool variations to all your tricks down the road. So edge out on your toes, cut back a little bit on your heels, and then start to slide the board and move the handle. When you land the toe side backside 180 in the blind position, it helps to really get all your weight back on the tail of the board. What this will allow you to do is overspin the board so the board is able to edge on its heel side, and this will keep you tracking and keep you from getting, unwound or spun back around. So after the surface 180s, you're going to move on to the next step of the graduation ladder, and that's to do the ollies. So with the ollie toe side backside 180, you're going to edge out, you're going to come off edge and flatten off. Make sure the rope is loose, and then ollie up and turn the backside 180. Most riders take the same steps to get to the blind landing. They pass the handle first, then they do the cuffed position, then they actually learn how to land blind. What we have riders do is we actually have them work on one side of the wake and edge in and out in the blind position without even doing a trick. So if you're doing a regular toe side backside 180, your landing would be in the switch blind position. So what you would want to do is on one side of the wake, you'd want to get into the switch blind position and then edge out away from the boat, let the boat pull you back towards the wake, and then edge out again without passing the handle. And what this does is it builds strength in the position, so when you try the 180s, you'll understand what position you need to land in and how to keep that position. As you twist into the landing, try to make the handle and the hand that's still on the handle touch your front hip so the boat will pull you from there. You can also guard the handle with the other hand by keeping it close to the pass, so if you get in trouble, you can complete the handle pass. When you overspin and get into the heel side blind position, try to take that position, freeze it, and then tip out toward the flats. This will stop the rope from unwinding you back to normal, and you can hold the half wrap position. The inside out toe side backside 180 is really difficult because you're twisted and it's hard to get pop off the inside of the wake. So get as much speed as you can and then add as much leg push and ollie to the inside lip of the wake as you can. One cool thing about this step in the graduation ladder is you can pop the 180 and then ride down the back face of the wake since it's hard to get so much speed. And you can see Mike actually do this on a lot of these 180s right here. Mike is actually doing each step of the graduation ladder with each of the 3 handle pass variations. This takes some time, but this is why he's so good at this trick and can land it in every single position. He actually took the time to really work on the landing position, and Mike's able to do some really cool spin variations because of this landing position. So it really pays off to work on it and take time to get used to the blind landings in the cuff position. These tech landings will make an advanced trick with the normal handle pass look even harder than it already is. So if you can do some of these inverts already and you thought they were easy, try adding this landing instead of a handle pass to experience a real challenge. As we move on to the one wake step of the graduation ladder, there's going to be a lot of turbulence in the middle of the wake, so you may want to slow the boat down again. And you're going to have to spin the 180 slower because you have more time in the air, just like before with the other 180s. On toe side backside 180s, it helps to keep your nose high in the air. I call this not pitching over. When you do a jump and leave the wake, you usually leave the wake with your nose high up in the air, and then you level out as you get to your peak. For these 180s, it helps to just leave your nose up in the air and not pitch over. What this does is it puts you in a perfect spinning position and sets you up for the landing. If you pitch over, a lot of times riders go out the front on their landing. So try to keep the nose high up in the air, and then as you leave the wake, just keep that position, then pull and spin. It's a lot better to land a little tail heavy on this trick than too heavy on your nose on the landing. As you do the handle pass variation of this trick, a lot of riders pass it under their butt. As you move to the cuffed and blind position or landing, you're going to want to pass the handle high or keep your arm high above your butt so you can hold the two positions. The toeside backside 180 is one of the coolest 180s, I think. You see a lot of variations, but you mostly see variations where the rider is actually grabbing the board late, where he'll pass the handle first and then grab the board on the way down. When you get to the wake-to-wake step of the graduation ladder, you're just going to take a bigger approach. And again, make sure that you keep the nose high in the air and you don't pitch over so you're set up for the landing. Edge a little bit in the trough, but not too much. We don't want a lot of line tension on this trick because it makes pulling on the handle very difficult, especially in the twisted position. So just use kind of a constant edge. You still want to be accelerating, but you don't want to accelerate too hard. As you can see here, Mike is able to spin his lower body, but keep his upper body facing away from the boat on the landing. And this is a really hard landing. But when it comes to doing different spin variations, Mike is able to land in all the awkward positions because of his training and dedication to these awkward landings. Here we have the two-wake toeside backside 180 landing blind. And this landing is very difficult because look how far you have to spin your lower body. It's twisted so much further than your upper body. It's a crossed up position and you really have to land tail heavy on the board to actually land the trick. As you can see in the chase boat view of this trick, as I'm coming in, I have a nice progressive edge, but when I leave the wake, I leave the nose high in the air. I don't pitch over, and it sets me up for a really nice tail heavy landing. After you land the wake to wake step of the graduation ladder, try to take this trick out in the flats. There are very few riders that are able to take the toeside backside 180 out into the flats, so if you can conquer this part of the graduation ladder, you'll be set up for some really cool tricks in the future. A key thing to remember as you climb the graduation ladder towards wake to wake and landing out in the flats is your position in the air. As the line tension increases, the rope has a tendency to pull you forward more and easier. You have to counter this by pushing your hips, butt, and board toward the boat, and by leaning away with your upper body. This is why a lot of riders choose to pass the handle low, because then the rope helps them get into that position. If you choose to pass the handle under your butt, the rope should pull your board toward the boat, and this is ideal if you're having problems passing high and going out the side or front on the landing. Since you're passing the handle low, the boat is pulling from a lower point on the axis, and it'll pull the board towards the boat. When it comes to grabbing this trick, there are really cool variations. You can grab the board at the beginning and do a late 180, which is really difficult, but a lot of riders really choose to pass the handle first and grab it late. As you can see right here, Jeff grabs the board first, then spins late, but to do this he has to land in a blind position, and this is really hard. Another variation is to do the toeside backside 180, passing the handle first, and then actually grabbing the board with your back hand after you pass the handle. Whenever you do the 180 without a grab, you still have to bring your knees up to get into this awkward spinning position. So it kind of sets you up for a grab eventually. After you get comfortable spinning the 180, you'll naturally just want to grab the board.
Grabbing the board during a trick gives wakeboarding huge variety. You can do the same trick so many different ways just by changing the grab. It keeps you hungry to do different variations every time you're out on the water. Let's go over some of the most common grabs performed today out on the water and add some style to your riding.
Alright, the first grab that we're going to talk about is the Indy grab. This grab is with your back hand, and you can do it either toe side and heel side. Indy is a rear hand grabbing between your bindings on your toe edge. You do this with your back hand, and you grab right in between your feet. As you approach the wake, take a nice heel side edge, pop, and then grab the board. As you get comfortable with the grab, you can add poke variations and even shifties to make this grab look really cool. This is probably one of the most common grabs in wakeboarding and the easiest to learn. It'll probably be your first grab on a wakeboard. As you progress with your riding, you'll even learn to let your board drift out behind you a little bit to add some style to the grab. The next grab that we're going to talk about is again a rear hand grab, but it's crail. And it's pretty similar to Indy, but instead of grabbing in between your feet, you're going to reach up towards the nose of the board. Crail is a rear hand grab, which grabs your toe side edge in front of your front foot. With this grab, you can add many cool variations to your flips and even your spins, and it starts to twist your body up and make things look really cool. Next is the nuclear grab, and what we're doing is we're working our way around the nose of the board. For a nuclear grab, your rear hand reaches in front of your body and grabs the heel edge in front of your front foot. A lot of times riders have to do this grab with a shifty or a backside air, or you can reach over the handle so you don't have to twist your body. The next grab, we're going to move to the opposite end of the board, and we're going to do a tail grab. The tail grab is a grab with your rear hand, and you're just basically grabbing the tail of the board. When you do this trick, it's such a simple grab, so you might want to add like a nose bone or a front leg poke to make the grab look really good. From the tail, we're going to move to the heel side edge of the board with the stalefish grab. And basically, the stalefish is a rear hand grab that reaches around the back side of your body to the heel edge of the board in between your feet. This is probably going to be the second grab that you learn, because your front hand stays on the handle so you have control. And basically all you do is let your free hand grab in between your feet on your heel side edge. Here you can see after Kurt and Ben grab their boards, they actually have time to add a little poke to the grab and give the grab a really good style. Those were the most common rear hand grabs, so now we're going to move on to the most common front hand grabs. The first grab that we're going to talk about is the mute grab, and basically we're going to start with the same pattern as the rear hand by grabbing the toe side edge in between your feet. The mute grab is a front hand grab that grabs right in between your feet on your toe side edge. Most of these grabs come from skateboarding and snowboarding and really solidify a rider as a stylish rider if they can grab their flips and spins. From here we move on to the slob grab, and basically we're moving to the nose of the board, still with front hand grabs. On this grab, your front hand grabs the toe side edge of your board in front of your front foot. This grab will actually help you spin 360s because it actually gives you something to pull on and help you spin your body around. You can even use it to help you tuck and flip tricks really fast. From the slob grab, we're going to move to the nose grab, and basically this is just a front hand grab that reaches to grab the front nose of the board. Since this grab is so basic, it's probably a good idea to add a tailbone or extend and straighten your back leg. From there, we're going to move around to the heel side edge of the board for the melon grab. It's really important to learn the melon grab because eventually you're going to want to do method grabs, and a method grab is basically a melon with a backside air combining to make a method air. The melon grab is a front hand grab that reaches around your front foot and grabs the heel edge between both feet. Most riders actually bone out their front leg on this trick, and what I mean by bone or poking the board is actually straightening one leg after you get the grab. Here we have a method grab, and basically this combines the melon grab with a backside air. A backside air is when you're actually turning your body backside in the air, like if you were going to spin an actual 360 backside. You actually stop yourself from spinning and land normal. So take the trick up and spin the backside air first, then reach down and grab the board. If you try to grab too early, it makes this trick very difficult. So along with grabs, you're going to eventually want to learn how to twist and shift your body in different positions. Here we have a backside air, and basically this is going to really add some style to your riding. Instead of just grabbing the board and doing nothing in the air, you can grab the board and twist your body into different positions to make your riding look really stylish. You can do many different variations of grabs with shifties and backside airs, and the variations are endless. So this should keep you busy out on the water because there's so many different tricks to learn. Now that you're up on your wakeboard, we're going to teach you all the positions that you're going to ride in while wakeboarding. When you're edging toe side, you'll be leaning over the toe side part of the board. That was me. But your basic body position is going to be straight from your shoulders to your hips. Your shoulders to your hips. You just look like you're getting so frustrated.
Are scared of this trick because you have to get crazy body position, craziness board out behind you. I feel like a robot. Am I just the robot man from Japan?
Just when I thought it was was safe to get better. New Albany sent me a lover, not a letter, whose mother was born to dream of better weather and oceans. Just